Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are and whenever you are. Welcome to Creator Toolbox. This is the series that brings you all of those nifty ServiceNow developer tools that you can get a hold of. And we're here to bring you the latest on San Diego. Where's that badge, Earl? Left shoulder. There it is. That tells you this is San Diego content. Can't wait till it starts. It says Tokyo in a few months. So looking forward to it. My name is Chuck Tomasi. I am a senior developer advocate at ServiceNow. Been here for a long time. We'll just say that. And was a customer for a bit before that, and a whole bunch of decades of developer experience. And over there is the mighty Earl.
Hi, everyone. I am Earl Duque. I am a developer advocate here at ServiceNow. Not quite as been around the ecosystem as long as Chuck, but before that, I was in higher education. And before I did ServiceNow, I was in student affairs. So that's what I've never said that on air before. So that's a little bit more of my background where I got started. But yeah, I'm here to do color commentary for Chuck's Creator Toolbox today.
And he's driving the comments and everything else behind the scenes. So thank you very much today, Earl. Quick reminder, I mentioned this is part of our San Diego series of content. We've got a rolling calendar of things, still more to come. We've been doing this for about 6 weeks, maybe 7. I lost count. Started on February 3rd, whatever that makes the math work out to. You can find our index, plenty, at that link on the screen, devlink.sn / San Diego. Now we're just on the cameras. It is. It's right there below my feet. And I invite you to go over there. If you've got something on your personal interest list, check it out. Mark your calendar if it's still coming up. Or if you're watching this in the future, go back and see what you might have missed. There's a lot of good stuff that's happening there, from Flow Designer, Integration Hub. We'll be doing a little bit of automated test framework today. We've got RPA still coming in the future. Earl's nailing down some of the buttons and zippers on that thing. So we'll get that all tightened up. We've got, as I mentioned, automated test framework today. Friday's live code happy hour is more platform loveliness. We're going to be implementing the new Facebook OpenID Connect, so you can use Facebook as an SSO. I learned a few things about that late last night while I had our developer online from India. I went, hey, what's going on here? I've got a question. So there's always something new to discover, isn't there, Earl?
Yeah.
You remember what I covered on Tech Now back on February 3rd? You'll remember this. We've got a way to insert breakpoints, and I'll discuss those as we get to them, and a way to pause the test before the rollback at the end. If you remember, automated test framework, as a quick background, is an in-platform test to do your functional testing. Why is this important? Well, you want to make sure you have quality releases of content before you release something to production. So you build your test in your dev environment, and then you test it in QA. If anything gets wrong, you go back to dev. You can do this very rapid cycle build. Build your test as you're doing your development. And this isn't just specific to scoped applications. You can do this on global applications. You can do this on plugins. You could do this on anything that you want to test to make sure that it works the way you expect before it goes into production. And those same tests can be rerun before and after an upgrade, for example. Run it before an upgrade to make sure everything is working as you expect, and then after the upgrade to make sure everything is working as you expect. Because it doesn't do you any good just to run a test after an upgrade. The upgrade may not be at fault. It may not have been working before. So quick pointer in there. A lot of people go, yay, we'll run ATF after we upgrade. If you didn't run it before, you have no baseline of which to base it on. And it may not be the upgrade's fault that something doesn't work. So just a little best practice there for you. So that's ATF in a nutshell. It saves you from learning a third-party tool, putting it on the platform, customizing it on every release, or even worst case, handing a spreadsheet to an intern or a summer student and saying, here, run these, and hoping you get back meaningful data. I've run many manual tests in my day, and sometimes people click on things that they shouldn't be clicking on. And it's like, why did you do that? It wasn't in the test. Or they give you back test results and say, I got an error message. Like, what was the error message? What did you do? What did you say? It's just horrific. So this gives you that in context way of saying this worked or this didn't. So let me get started and show you where automated test framework is. This is our next experience. If you're new to the video and you haven't seen this yet, the menus look a little different, but should still look very familiar enough that you know where we're going. So I'm going to go to automated test framework, and we've got our whole wonderful list of stuff for that application. Not going to go through a whole build out. I've already built out a test. My use case in this one is an application we're prototyping for CreatorCon. This is just a simple no-code application that has student approvals for like field trips. So the teacher creates an activity, the activity gets a student, and when the student is added to the related list, a flow kicks in and says, we need an approval for this student to go on this activity, whether it's the dairy farm, the sports facility, or the correctional facility. I don't know what teacher would take their student to a correctional facility. Must be a really interesting course if that's where we're going.
Did we just
Possibly.
get some insight onto your field trips when you were younger, Chuck?
I didn't go to any correctional facilities. Making up demo data is one of the hardest things we do as developers. Am I right?
That's fair.
And sometimes my imagination needs a little alcohol-fueled inspiration. A distillery. We could take a trip to the distillery.
The kids.
Don't get me started. All right. Two new things I want to point out on this. One is, if you look at these UI actions, see if I can do my pinch zoom trick. There it is. We've got run test, which has always been there, but we also have this new button called debug test in San Diego.
Ooh,
The rest of this is pretty much the same. Okay. We also have a new related list here called breakpoints. I'm not turning this into a drinking game for the podcast. Okay. Just leave it at that. And my test is, as usual, we've got some client-side things where we're opening a form. We've got some server-side things where we're doing record queries. Not a horrifically long test, but it's a test nonetheless. Let's go through a typical day pre-San Diego, and we'll run the test. And it says, I need a new client test runner because there are client bits in here. Starts me up, and away we go.
I love watching this part.
This one's going to run a little slow. I forgot to turn off the picture taking part where it grabs the screenshots. So it runs. And I mean, obviously, if you're observant and you're watching something other than that status bar, you noticed there was something horrifically wrong with that. Okay. Change screens, and that's not a good screen you want to come home to. Yeah. So you go, okay, something failed in the order of 3 to 5. Let's go to our result. So we click go to result. And we get down here and it says, well, the first couple passed. I created a user, which is often what you want to do. Don't use an out-of-box user. Don't use one of your regular users because people change roles and your data changes. This is a way to make sure that I statically use this school principal is the sysuser account that I made as my test user. Then I can grant them the roles, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, but I got down here, unable to set field start time is not present on the form. Interesting.
Oh.
I jump into that test. Well, I don't have any attachments. Let's see. Oh, I have some attachments up here. Let's take a look. 2 attachments. And the way I would do that is look at the image, open the image. And that appeared on a whole different screen. Let me move that into frame. And Earl, what's wrong with this record? It's right. The start time doesn't appear on here.
There's nothing on there. That looks
There's
like
nothing on there.
It looks like an access restriction.
That's what I'm thinking. So let's go back to history test. Oh, not test results. I want the test. I love that history menu.
When a screen loads and there's nothing on it, that usually means there's an ACL restriction problem.
So something is happening around test 3. So what I'm going to use is our new breakpoint. This is so easy. You right click, or what do they call that? Alt click something. And we have a UI action down there called add remove breakpoint.
There we go.
Don't take a drink. And it indicates this with the red. Okay. If you're using the old style, it'll be a red dot. If you're using the new style, it'll be this way. So just some indicator on there that says you've got a breakpoint. Also, there on the breakpoints related list, we have 1 record. And what's not shown here is that this is my record. So if Earl were in here testing at the same time, his breakpoints would not interfere with mine. These are session specific.
That's nice.
I don't know why it's not on the related list, but maybe is it filtered to me? No. Okay, well, whatever. Let's use the debug test. Now, when I hit debug test, you'll also notice that we have this new checkbox, pause before rollback. We'll get to that in a second. If checked, the test will run. The test will pause after the test is completed, but before it's rolled back. Think of that as like a breakpoint after the last one, if you will. Okay, if I put a breakpoint here, it's going to pause before it gets to that step. Maybe we just leave that there for now. All right, let's go ahead and hit debug test again. I'm not going to pause before rollback, but I'll run the test, and we are going to see it gets up to that step. Now, there's two things in here that I want to point out. There is continue and step over. Continue says, great, I'm happy you paused. Now, when I hit continue, run to the end or run to the next breakpoint. Okay. I've seen what I need to see. This gives you a chance to go look at logs, go look at records as they're being opened, et cetera, et cetera. Now, remember, as the test is running, I am impersonating whoever that other person is. So you may not have full access to your system. ATF really takes over and says, do an impersonation of that test user that was created. So step one is create me a school principal. Step two is impersonate the school principal. Step three is let's go open the form. Step over is a way to walk through the test steps one by one in my control. It's like a manual, advance one step, advance one step, advance one step. Now, we are running a client step right now. So this really doesn't do me any good to do some introspection. What I need is over here, and I have the same two controls on the right-hand side, continue and step over. So
Nice.
it's paused right before step three, open form. You can see I don't have an open form. So let's hit step over, and it's going to try to do step three, open the form. The other thing I want to point out over on this side is you can see on the left, it says paused at breakpoint, 10 minutes remaining. If you pause too long, it will just say, hey, you must have fallen asleep. I can't hold the system in this stasis forever. So we're going to move on. So there, now it's 9. Oh, I've been talking too long. That didn't feel like 60 seconds to me, but we'll take your word for it. Now, at this
That's
point,
nice though, because especially for the sake of if someone forgets that they had breakpoints, it's creating
yeah,
data. So you need to the system wants to clean it up and get to the end of it.
right. Wants to clean it up. And, you're holding some system processes hostage at this point too. So probably not the best thing to do forever. But I've got full control over where I'm going and how I'm doing this. And I can see at this point, there is clearly an access record, an access problem here. Now, how I choose to debug that, I could run the test to completion, go, okay, it failed. I think I know where the problem is. It's in this step. So clearly, the school principal doesn't have access to this record. So just for fun, let's continue. It's going to error out. It skips all those other results. I'm going to get the same looking, red, blue, red, yellow. You're like, Chuck, what did that prove? It proved that I had control long enough to see what was going on. Because if I wasn't looking at the client test runner, wouldn't have noticed. So I know there's a problem with step 3.
Yeah, something to notice too is your other breakpoint didn't hit because it had failed earlier. So there
Right.
wasn't another place to go to.
Right. If I go to the results, it says, hey, you had a failure. Skip, 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 skip. So it's not going to, it died and got out of there. So let's go look at the test. Let's go look at the test itself. I think I know what the problem is. What did you say? It feels like a permission issue?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I am back to being me. I'm no longer impersonated. It did stop the impersonation. I don't see the impersonate user here, but interesting. I thought I had an impersonate user step in there. Not going to worry about that right now.
Does the create user have an option to
I
immediately
think you're
impersonate?
right. I think it is.
Yeah, there you
Impersonate this user is a checkbox. And looky here, there's no roles on this user.
Mm-hmm.
That could very well be the problem. And if I were to go and look at the table, let's go into Studio, for example. Look at this app.
Yeah, it sounds like access to create record, but no access to any of the fields.
Access control says create needs. You need to be a student admin. And I'll bet the same thing is true for read and write, which is why nothing showed up on that form. Sure enough, I have to assign a role to that user. So in this create user, let's go roles, X under student admin, done, lock it down, update it.
Since we're debugging too, do you want to check your second create user and make sure that one's not getting impersonated?
Good point. Not impersonated.
All right, we're good.
And because I'm not impersonating this, they probably don't need a role. It's just sample data that I want to put in a field later.
Right.
We need a teacher on this activity record. And I said, all right, I'm not going to use an existing teacher because that data may not be available every time I run the test. Could be different in dev than it is in prod. So
I like that it shows
any
the
assumptions
with
about your
roles.
test data.
I appreciate that it shows the with roles on the description right there.
Oh, there you go. That would have been helpful. I should have noticed the absence of that, but I'm not that experienced with ATF, so maybe I don't recognize it. Let's do a debug test again. Run test. It's going to run up to the client spot till I switch screens. Go switch screens, and we're paused right before that test. Notice on the left, paused at breakpoint. I'm suspicious of that counter right now. Let's hit step over. So we're going to advance this one step. Yay, I've got the form. That step simply said, open the form. Okay. Next step is populate some stuff with the teacher that was in step 2, with the activity that was, come on, I think I'm at another breakpoint.
Oh, you're stepping over.
Keep going. And we have another error. Look at this, going step by step. Activity is a mandatory field. We can't submit this. In effect, it's going to die again. Right, so let's continue. And once again, I think we can put away Studio. We've done everything we need to. Oh, look, it's still broken. I have 2 problems in this thing, at least 2 problems with this test. Who wrote this? I need to speak to that author. Let's go find out what that is. I suspect it's going to tell me the same thing. Save action was aborted before being sent to the server. Now, I wouldn't really infer that I'm missing a mandatory field from that error message. So again, walking through step by step shows me what I need to do. Your first question may be, why don't you just put a breakpoint at the beginning and then step through the whole thing till it works? You could do that. I like to put it where I suspect the error is first, or right before an error happens, because I'd rather not get down to a 19-step test and go 1, 2, 3, 4, still working. That makes for slower debugging if you have to step through successful things every time. So we know we have a problem here, and I could see from the screenshot that there is a missing mandatory field, which means let's go back to the test, and somewhere we could actually remove that breakpoint because we know that step works now. And let's try it on set field values. Blink. It's got to redraw the form so it's updated. And I think...
Yeah, we can see it from there. It's missing that field.
It is missing the activity field. Yeah. Maybe when this test was originally written, activity wasn't mandatory? Don't know.
Yeah. Which is a good use case that you're demonstrating for real world why these tests are useful, because what you might have expected as a passing test before, it's changed over time.
Yep. Okay, I'm not going to use a data pill. I'm just going to say we're going on a brewery tour, as every 3rd grade should. And let's do another debug test. You can see these test results are piling up too in the test results related list. So that's a fun thing. Debug test. Run test. Let's go over to our client test runner.
So you do have breakpoint still, so it should stop.
Yes, I moved it from step 3 to step 4. And we're at a breakpoint right before step 4. So open the record. Now I'm going to step, teacher, brewery tour, start time, end time, everything looks good. Mandatory fields are filled out. It's on the next step. And we'll go to the next step. You don't have to go step by step here. I could say, let's continue. So it says, let's save the form. Now it's going to attempt to create a related list record, which is all going to be server side. And from here, I might be able to go continue back.
Yeah, you should
I
hit
think
one
there's a
more
couple more
breakpoint.
client steps to do. Yep. Oh. Yeah, there's a couple client steps at the end that it needs to do. So it's filling out this approval record. Then it's going to approve the record. Hooray. Taking screenshot. I should have taken the screenshots out, but it's been approved. The permission is approved. And paused at breakpoint. Remember, I put a breakpoint right before the very, very end?
Mm-hmm.
At this point, again, I could go around and look at system logs, maybe look at these activity records, say, hey, what's in sys approval approver list? Oh, I've got a permission record. I can see this stuff actually happened and is being done.
And you're still impersonating the person because you could tell with the security risk constraints.
Oh, yeah. If it were me, I'd see all of those. But this is before the last step. What was our last step? I think it was a validation or an assertion of some type. History, test step. Oh, not test step. Wrong one. Test.
You're not going to be able to see it because you're impersonating.
You are right. Well, that's a big bummer. Okay, we're going to have to finish this. So I'm before the last step. Let's just hit continue one more time, and it will finish things up. So that gives you an idea of how breakpoints work. And let's refresh this screen now that I'm back to being me. Test results. Success.
Hey.
I have success.
Successful
There's something
debug.
in here that I wanted to show you in the test steps. That last step, here we know this worked, so let's take that off. Easy as that, just adding and removing breakpoints. And field values validation. I have no assertion on this. Validate that the form matches these fields. Oh, I thought there was oh, the assertion was on the UI action. Never mind. I was looking at the wrong one. There's a submit. Where is it? Click a UI action. When you go into this client actionable thing to click a UI action, you tell it what UI action you're looking for. I'm saying I want to click the approve UI action. And then there's an assertion type. And I love this annotation right above it. Right now, it's just going to click it and not care. But I may want to make sure that the data was actually submitted to the server. You might have a modal that pops up. You might have a reason why you hit a set abort action and it wasn't actually submitted. So there's different ways you can do this. You could say, was it canceled in the browser or was the page reloaded or redirected? This is actually the default, if I remember right. Form is submitted to the server. Why somebody changed it, I don't know.
You're saying it changed to none as the default?
I changed it earlier today.
Ah.
I thought it was going to give me an error, but it didn't. Okay, let's remove all the breakpoints. But this time when I run it, I'm going to do debug test and check that pause before rollback. Both of these are suggestions that people made through the idea portal. So if you go to the community, community.servicenow.com, and you go to the top, there's an idea portal where you can enter in new ideas for the products or enhancements or possibly bugs, and then upvote what other people have said. And the breakpoint and the pause before rollback were included in these suggestions. And we said, yeah, we can do that.
I like the pause before rollback idea that someone suggested. It's so helpful for the sake of verifying if there was a false positive. because sometimes you just want to let it run
Right.
and then look at the data at the very end and do a quick eye glance through, or make sure that everything looks appropriate before it actually you say like, okay, everything was good.
Exactly. I like to look at the records and just give them a visual inspection and say, "Did it do I need to make my test better? Maybe I
Yeah.
need to fill out another field, or maybe a business rule ran or a flow ran that I'm not seeing." Because when it does a rollback, it rolls back. I mean, it puts everything back to the state that it was in before. So, this is done? What happened to my pause? Oh, wait.
It's not
This
done yet.
status bar isn't at the very end. Where's my indicator that says I'm pausing before rollback?
Actually, it says waiting for a test run. So
Rolling back DB changes. Here we go, right here. Rolling back DB changes that occurred before the text execution. So it's not doing that step for me. It's
oh,
it's
there, yeah. So
it's at the
your browser client that controls the ATF is already released, but the actual
right.
rollback doesn't have to happen in that thing. So it only you have the continue in the step over here still. I got it.
It was a bit hidden. Watch for this message here, okay? And then down below, you're also going to see here. Now I've gotten again 10 minutes to do something, 9 now. But at this point, I could go, well, I want to see that activity table. And since my impersonated user now has, student permission access, you could see, there's 29. Yeah, we're going on a brewery tour. There's the student that was added. There's their permission. It was approved. You can go looking through here. You could potentially go looking through system logs, right? See what's happening. Hmm, not much, but a few things happening with the test runner that don't interest me. In case you have GS info statements in some of your scripts, whatever, that's all going to be there. So very nice way to do that. Now, Earl,
Yep.
how do I continue if I'm not that person? I go history, test. Oh, the impersonation is over. It's just waiting to roll back. So I don't have to worry about getting back to this. There was, oh, where was it? I saw something somewhere where I was on a test result screen or test, and it said, return to test or continue test while I was in that impersonation state. I wish I could remember where I saw that. I don't think it was here.
Oh, is it
Because I
like if
needed to
you?
get back to one of these screens, and I went,
It's
"Wait,
like
but
if
I'm
you
not
close the
admin, and
window.
I don't have access," and, um, so this is the previous one that ran to success. We haven't finished until we've done the rollback. So at this point, oh, this is what it was. I lost my dialogue. I lost my modal. How do I tell it to keep going?
Opening. Can you open the test result again?
Can't open the test results. They haven't been logged. Yeah, I'm right where I want to be. So how do I continue? And I thought it wasn't there. Uh, if I do debug test again, it's going to launch another one, right?
Manage your test runners here.
It's going to start it. Well, oh, waiting while another one. View the test in progress. There it is. See that? You just have to be able to read.
Yeah. Can you
Says, I can't
cancel?
run another test. You're already running a test. So this one is paused. If I go in here, it says show progress. Now I'm back to where I was. So if you happen to navigate away from the test runner, the test as it's running, you could still get there. How many minutes do I have left? 6.
6 months.
I knew I saw that somewhere when I was learning about this last week.
I think
Like,
before you press the
I lost
run.
my little window that, a lot of times what I know people will do, hey, look, it came back.
Huh.
A lot of times what people will do is they'll open up a list of records like, hey, I want to look at the activity list. Open it in another window. So you do the shift control thing or shift command, and it opens up that list in another window. I'm getting a little lazy on that now that we have the next experience where everything's in full screen anyway. Are we done? Are we done? Go to result. There's our step results. There's our test results, blah, 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 blah.
Oh,
Get these out of
you
the
got
way.
re-impersonated somehow.
No, I don't think I got re-impersonated. I think the screen is just a little. What?
I think you're because you remember how you're
Oh, I am.
trying to
I'm
run a
back
test
to
again.
school principal.
You were running a test again.
Oh, as the school principal, I ran it. You're right. What world am I in right now?
Brewery.
Test in progress. More info. How did the school principal launch one? No, I don't want to go to the docs page. Thanks. Yeah, apparently I am. Can I end impersonation? Okay, that was interesting. I ran a test within a test and became that other person again. Whew. I'm curious to see what the history will say on this.
Todd in the chat mentioned something that I usually do too when I run ATF tests, and I usually run these tests in an incognito window to avoid impersonating users while I do
That's
other
a good
stuff.
idea. Okay, this one is still running. Let's show progress. It's waiting for me to get over to the client runner, I'll bet. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. So I have to finish the second test before I can look at the results of the first test. Whew.
And it's
Nested
because
tests.
you press the run test button, which got you back to the dialogue window. But
Yep.
I think before you press the run test button, there was a blue link that said view manage test runners that you could click on instead of hitting the actual run button.
Let's close that window. It's messing me up. Okay. This one I would expect to fail because it was launched by somebody else, the student runner. Step results, success, 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 skipped. Okay. Not worried about that particular run. I want the one before it. There we go. So we had a success on the one that paused before rollback. That was not the best demo of pause before rollback. Should we just do that again real quick?
Sure.
Okay. I am me. I'm back to being Chuck. Multiple personality syndrome on an instance. It's a lot of fun. I've got my tests. I don't have any breakpoints. I'm simply going to. Where's my run test?
You got to refresh. Oh, what?
You know what? I'm going to log out and log back in. I don't know what state I'm in anymore. That was clearly a mess. Okay. History test. That sounds like something I had in high school, a history test. No breakpoints. And breakpoints are persistent. If I were to log out and log back in, these records would still be there, which would be represented on this related list. So I don't need to worry about that. Let's debug test, start a new test runner, or I could use the one that's already there. Let's use the one that's already. No, I don't trust this one. Let's do a new one.
I wouldn't either.
I don't trust that one. Pause before rollback. That was part of that. What the heck? Client runner runs, activity record gets created, teacher field, activity field. There they are. Start time, end time. And goes and does some server stuff, looks up the permission record that got created, gets the approval off of that. Now we go back into the approval record and approve it. So not everything needs to be done on the client side. There's a certain beauty to doing it on the client, opening forms and setting field values because you can actually see what a real user would do. But querying for records needs to be done on the server side. And some of these things were done by a flow in the background. There are timers on some of these that say, hey, wait 5 seconds or wait up to 5 seconds or 10 seconds or 30 seconds if you know process is going to happen. Otherwise, your test step may come along and say, I need to find this record, but the flow hasn't finished running.
Right.
Thank you to Lisa for helping me with that little scenario. Okay, test has run. I'm waiting before rollback. Here's that not done with rollback thing. So the question is, Earl, am I still impersonating?
According to this, it seems so, but it did release the runner. So
Let's do this. Let's go to all
I don't think you're impersonating anymore.
student permissions. Let's open this up in a new browser tab.
Lisa says you're welcome, by the way.
Good. All right. And I can mess around with this record. It's still there. It's still live. It's not going to be rolled back. Interestingly enough, if you've been watching the numbering sequencing, they are going up. So the number is not being rolled back. And I think system logs are also unaffected. It doesn't roll back all the records. It just rolls back the ones that you're trying to test. Let's save. And then we can say who updated it with show XML. And sys updated by was me. So at this point, I am not updating. I'm not impersonating. Okay. Just wanted to see, am I still the sample principal, whatever I called it, school principal? When we're done, we can finish the rollback. I'm not sure you want to try step over or continue?
I bet it would be the same thing. Step over then.
Yeah, it feels like it's the same technology here because it says paused at breakpoint. So it's like it put a breakpoint after the step before the rollback.
Right.
I'm going to guess it does the same thing too. There's really nowhere to go.
There you go. No more steps.
No more steps. And if we go back and look at our student activity again, 1031 is gone.
Right.
Which makes sense. It's done the rollback on what it needs to.
Yeah, rolling back a number would be dangerous because other people might be working on the table too.
I wonder who got to figure that out. What works and what doesn't? What's dangerous? Do we have any questions from the chat?
Not so much questions, but more helpful information. Lisa is pointing out that if you want some good best practices for creating ATFs or get started with headless ATF testing, there are academy sessions that you can look up on that have a playlist on that information. Stuff like adding a timer to allow for flows to run, approvals to be created, creating test data at runtime, when to use server stepovers over UI steps, etc. That's Lisa's pointing out that those are all stuff that you can learn if you look it up.
Well, where were those videos when I was trying to do this last week?
Did you ask Lisa? She would have
pointed. That always
you
seems to be the case, right? I learned this the hard way, and then you tell me there was already enablement material on that. So we're now telling you. Good stuff. Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, those Academy videos can be found on the community playlist. So if you go to YouTube, search for ServiceNow Community, you'll find that in the playlist for the Academy series. Good stuff. Oh, she sent me the list. Wow, that's just adding insult to injury.
The rest of the chat is talking about a feature that came out in Rome called Headless ATF, which is basically being able to run ATF without having to go in and pressing the button itself to say run test suite or anything, and have it run on its own. Headless. Headless is becoming a more and more used term in ServiceNow.
Yeah, we've got headless mid servers now too. So using the Docker technology, we can deploy these things, run your ATFs scheduled without having a server farm full of different machines. A lot of fun stuff in there. Excellent. I think that's pretty much everything we wanted to cover. Any announcements you'd like to share, Earl?
Other than make sure to keep checking in on San Diego. We're running pretty solid here.
Every blog entry, every creator toolbox, every live coding happy hour, every breakpoint podcast. Had to sneak the word breakpoint in one more time on this. Last week's breakpoint was with Charn Lin on some of the new developer tool updates in San Diego. That on the 23rd of March, we'll be releasing another one with Julia Perlis talking about decision builder and decision tables. That's a fun one. And then looking at doing one on RPA Hub a couple weeks after that. I forget what that date would be. Early April 4th, 8th, something like that. Whatever the Wednesday is on that week. So we've got a few more to go with San Diego. A couple more weeks on Creator Toolbox and Live Coding Happy Hour. Then we're looking at bringing you some new video content. Right now, Earl and Brad and I are heavily focused on the San Diego content, but also got to spend some time on the CreatorCon content as well. We've got some real fun stuff in the works. Too early to really socialize and share with that, but that'll be coming soon. Keep your eye out for announcements. We've got an upcoming developer newsletter. So if you're part of the developer community, you've got a PDI, for example, you've signed into developer.servicenow.com, you'll get the newsletter. We got some great articles and comments and whatnot coming out about that. So
Knowledge information is out in the open now. So if you have been living under a rock and haven't looked around yet, you can start looking up what's going on with knowledge, seeing the changes this year.
Knowledge.servicenow.com is where you're going to find everything. And make sure that you check out the CreatorCon page as well. It'll keep you up to date. There's even some quotes on there. If you notice, they're little dynamic tiles. There's a library of about 8 or 10 quotes. I've got one. See if you can spot my quote.
That's it for me.
That's it for today. Thank you very much, Earl, for doing the driving. Somewhere I have my sound effect, but it's not at my fingertips. I failed on that one. So we'll put the outro music in post. Till next time, everybody, stay safe. We'll see you again on Friday for the Facebook OpenID Connect stuff and some tips and tricks we learned about that as well. So great for citizens or government organizations who want to, say, perhaps have a portal where citizens come in through their Facebook authentication. We'll show you how to do that and why the OpenID Connect has been out for over a year, but we didn't have Facebook. Talk to you then. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Bye everyone.